Perhaps we wait a few seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you on behalf of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom and of the Thomas Dehler Foundation. My name is Konstantin Groth. I am Program Officer for the two foundations in Bavaria, and I would like to briefly introduce you to our event In the Shadow of the Kremlin, how Russia tries to influence politics and public opinion in Germany. First, I would like to thank our cooperation partners, especially the Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center, for the initiative of the event and their active participation in the preparations. And I would like to thank the Munich Social Sciences Institute for Future Issues for their support in promoting the event. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have already heard it. Just a few days ago, Russia declared our foundation, the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom, an undesirable organization. For our office, Russia in Exile, this is the actual name, which has no longer been allowed to be based in Russia since 2022. This means further restrictions on its work. But overall, this step is confirmation that we are doing good work, because there's nothing that Putin's fascist regime fears more than people who stand up for freedom and democracy and defend societies against disinformation and influence from this regime. This is our daily work. I am proud of it. And with this event, we are continuing this work, and we ask how Russia is trying to influence the political landscape in Germany as part of the hybrid war it is waging against us. Moreover, we think that especially in the run-up to the European elections, it is important to ask, are there politicians who have connections to Russia? Are there parties where Russian influence falls on fertile ground? Does Russia also influence politicians from parties in the democratic center? Here we are looking at East Germany and the Nord Stream 2 case. And what is the goal of Russian influence and how does it work? I'm really looking forward to the discussion. And before I introduce our speakers, I will hand over to Katarina Matej, the German representative of the Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center.
Good evening. My name is Katarina Matej. I would like to welcome you today on behalf of the Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center from Kyiv for this important discussion in the run-up to the European Parliament elections. Once again, I would like to thank for the wonderful collaboration with the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom, the Thomas Dehler Foundation, and above all, a sincere thanks to Dr. Konstantin Groth. I would like also to thank the first-class panelists today, and I'm very excited about today's discussion. Thank you.
Sincere thanks to you, Katarina. I would now like to introduce our speakers. Welcome, Stefan Thomé. Stefan Thomé is a member of the Bundestag and Parliamentary Managing Director of the FDP Parliamentary Group. In the Bundestag, he's also chairman of the Committee for Election Verification, Immunity and Rules of Procedure, as well as a full member of the Domestic Affairs Committee and the Council of the Elders. He's also deputy chairman of the German-Ukrainian Parliamentary Group. Welcome, Markus Benzmann. Markus Benzmann is an investigative journalist for the research network Correctiv. He works for the network since 2014. Among other things, he researched the shooting down of flight MH17 and AfD financing. He was the author of the corrective study Alternative for Russia, how the AfD is systematically oriented towards Russia. And he was also involved in the corrective research you all know, secret plan against Germany about the secret meeting near Potsdam in November 2023. Welcome, Olesya Horyanova, who is connected to us from Ukraine. She's co-founder and deputy director of the Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center in Kyiv. She took an active part in the Revolution of Dignity, better known for the Germans under the name Euromaidan. She was involved in reforms in the medical field and in the field of national security in Ukraine. For the Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center, she researches Russia's hybrid war in Ukraine and together with her team analyzes hybrid Russian influences in the West and how they can be counteracted. And welcome Roland Preuss, who will moderate the event. Roland Preuss works as an editor in the Süddeutsche Zeitung parliamentary office in Berlin. In federal politics, he observes the AfD, which has repeatedly attracted attention due to its proximity to Russia and its pro-Russia positions. He also deals with labor market and social policy. Now, as always, my usual note to our viewers: feel free to ask questions via Q&A. If you are watching via Zoom, most of our viewers are watching us via YouTube, but if you are watching us via Zoom, you can ask questions. Use the Q&A function for that, please. And now I wish you all a good event and lots of new insights. And dear Mr. Preuss, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Groth. Thank you, Katerina Mattei. Warm welcome to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, and to our participants. I want to start with a question to Olesya Horyanova. How did Russian influence develop in the Ukraine before the invasion started in February 2022? Was there kind of disinformation war before the tanks passed the border?
Thank you. Thank you for organizing of this beautiful event, to Konstantin and to Katerina. Thank you for participating in the event with me, all the speakers and the moderator. So yeah, as was said before, our organization is monitoring and is studying Russian hybrid warfare, both in Ukraine and in Western countries throughout past 10 years. So yeah, we saw how Russia operated in Ukraine, and we see how it is operating in the Western countries right now, and we see many similarities between that. So the Russian influence in Ukraine, it wasn't only disinformation, it wasn't only something that you can see before the 2014. As you may know, we had Russian citizen as our Minister of Defense in Ukraine. We had strict ties between our different facilities inside the our security sector, and it was built up for decades. So it was even after the eruption of Soviet Union, we never really got from the Russian influence in Ukraine, and we began to start to do that only in 2021 for sure. This is what it was like in Ukraine, and yeah, the strategic. I can give you a great example from nowadays, because it didn't it didn't change the way it worked.
We come back to that in a minute, but I would be interested in the question if you noticed that this kind of disinformation intensified to prepare the invasion. Did you notice any like that?
Of course it did. And we've been monitoring the informational landscape both in Ukraine and in Western countries right before the beginning of full-scale invasion. We saw that, and right before the 2014, right before the very start of Russian war against Ukraine, after the Revolution of Dignity, we saw that coming with Russian networks of influence. It was made by information, it was made by politician, pro-Russian politician, it was made by Russian people that were brought to Ukraine to build and to organize the Russian Spring, so-called. So yeah, it was quite noticeable that Russia was up to something, and that it will be big. So yeah, that is why we see how European countries are struggling right now from Russian influence, and we see very big amount of similarities, and it is quite frightening.
Can you tell us how was the role of the media? We know Russia today is taking influence on Western societies. We have the social media, we have this troll fabrics in Russia. How far did this play a role?
It plays a big role, actually. We see how world and informational sphere in the world is evolving rapidly throughout past 10-20 years. So yeah, the troll factories, the bot factories, the social media itself, and also the media are a tool in Russian hybrid warfare. And it is the main problem not in using that by Russia and by other autocracies, but in the fact that the Western world, the Western democracies haven't had like a real conversation and a plan how to fight that. So Russia has become very good at manipulating democratic principles within democracies, and Russia itself doesn't need to face many constant challenges as we do, supporting freedom of speech and freedom of press, and observing the norms of democratic electoral process, respecting human rights. So Russia, it is not obliged by such things and has always been very vocal in defending democracy in countries other than its own. And this is the basis of the activities and success of its global network of influence. And we see that in Germany right now as well, because when a party separate personalities, public opinion leaders, journalists, politicians are coming to the public and saying things to dismanage the right order in the country, it is hard to manage by the government, of course, because this is the freedom of speech, right? The freedom of will, the freedom of human itself. But we would need to deal with that, because there wouldn't be another way.
Mr. Thoma, when you compare this to Germany, does this sound familiar to you when you hear about this kinds of influence that you experienced in Ukraine?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for invitation to this interesting discussion this evening, and for questioning me. Yes, it sounds quite familiar. The influence Russian authorities try to gain in Germany also take their way about spreading Kremlin talking points in Germany, about gaining confidence with colleagues, members of parliament. We are talking about the AfD parliamentary group this evening, and we know that some of them, at least some of them, if not many of them, are in tight connection with authorities in Russia or Russian authorities here in Germany, and the intention is to influence the opinions, public opinions, in not only in Germany but all over Europe. And the way Olesia Holyanova described are quite similar to the ways these authorities try to step forward here in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about the things that the security authorities in Germany notice? What are the most problematic ways Russia tries to influence German opinion and German and politics in Germany?
Mm. Well, it's not only influencing opinion in Germany. We know that there are even more dramatic ways to try to influence the mood, the situation here in Germany, or even in Europe. The last days we had some detections of spies, of Russian spies, not only in the intelligence service. Carsten L. is a case, but also a case of obstruction with Dieter S. and Alexander J. Two person planned obstruction actions on German military bases. So it's not only trying to influence the discussion and the opinion in German public, but it's also more harder ways, even ways that we do not know from the Cold War in the 20th century. We had, as far as I know, not such tries to obstruct military bases in Germany. So this is another step, and we have to be wary, to be aware of this intentions of Russian authorities to influence opinion, to spread Putin's propaganda in Germany, but also obstruct critical infrastructure and to put spies in our public authorities. So this is another situation.
What you described, this broad variety of taking influence and also security operations. Russia obviously is operating here in Germany. Would you say this is kind of shadow war that is back again, like in the Cold War?
Yeah, we call it a hybrid war on different stages, different levels. We know about cyber attacks. We know about espionage now, which is new step, obstruction, and of course the main point, to take influence, to manipulate, to influence elections in Germany, in Europe, and this is of course another step, a grade of a hybrid war Russia is carrying now to Europe.
When we take a closer look to the Bundestag, where you sit not far away from the members of parliament of the Alternative for Germany, AfD, how do you notice the pro-Russian stance and the Russian influence in this party?
Mm. Well, we have now the detection. We have Markus Benzmann with us this evening. We have the so-called Russiagate case, the first named case of an European, in this case German parliamentarian, who received money by Russian authorities. Spoken about 20,000 euros in this case, for an interview for a Russian official broadcast institution, Voice of Europe, based in Prague, as far as I know. So these are cases where Russian authorities directly deal with German parliamentarians, but you have also more subtle tries, for example, to deal with employees of members of parliament. Also detection of around maybe 100 employees here in German Bundestag. We do not know exactly what the tight coordination and cooperation with Russian state authorities are. So this is an unsecure danger we have to be aware and have to face here in the German Bundestag. So there are several stages, and this is a clear intention of the Russian authorities to try to make our system more unstable.
Markus Benzmann, as we just said, the right-wing alternative for Germany is well known for its Putin-friendly course. Can you explain us, as an AfD expert, how a party with many right-wing extremists in its rows has developed an affection for Putin and its politics? That's not a natural partner for right-wing extremists in Germany. How come?
No, first of all, thank you very much that you invited me for this very interesting panel, and I'm very happy to discuss this issue because I think that's very important. And the thing is that is not that is quite logical, because the far right, they hate one thing almost, and that are the values of the Western liberal democracy. And they are, their ideas is to destroy that. And they are combined, that's very interesting. And there you have also some interesting coalitions also with the left wings. The hate of America, they want to push out America from Europe and to ally to Russia. And they're saying that the AfD took over the propaganda words multipolar world order. That means that Europe is somehow an region together with Russia and China, kick the influence of the United States out. This Western alliance, which may give Europe for years after the Second World War peace and freedom. And this is actually the point. They want to destroy the idea of a liberal world.
Yeah. And can you tell us about the role that the interior and society politics of Putin plays? So when we look on how his model of democracy is, when we look how he thinks about homosexuality, the traditional picture how families should work, and so on, are there parallels? Is this part of this partnership that we have similar thinking about these themes?
Yeah, the interesting thing is we have in the AfD a strong anti-liberal ideas, and where they're reflecting the idea of gay Europe, which the Russian propaganda is using as a war against the Satanists of the Western world. But the AfD is run by a woman who is married with a woman and has kids with a woman. Yeah, that means there is some contradiction inside the AfD too. But that is actually the propaganda tools which they are playing. And the AfD, they went to Russia praising the election of Putin, went to Crimea and telling that is the right thing to do. And the top candidate who is also involved in this Russian gate of Voice of Europe, Maximilian Krah, he wrote a book and said the right-wing party, they can win if Russia is going to win in Ukraine. And he's praising the attack as a funnel to destroy this so-called rotten West. And I think now we have also to understand why Russia is also supporting them. I think the big mistake which the German policy or some politicians in Europe are doing, we still thinking we are the mediator in the war, Russia against Ukraine. But that is not the truth, that is not the thing. We are the goal, the prize of this war. Russia is going, and that is his aim, the dominance about Europe. And he's using his players inside the countries. And in the recent day, the Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo, and the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Petr Bystron, they wrote a letter saying they want to destroy the democracy. They want to bribe a pro-Russian politician inside the parliament and to destroy what I think we should defend.
So this means a victory over the Ukraine would be a first step to undermine Western democracies as a whole. That is the idea behind that.
No, that is the idea. That is the aim. Yeah, we are the target. We are not the mediator. We are the target, and that is they are saying openly. If Medvedev speaking about Eurasian union from Lisbon to Vladivostok, we should take this word as a threat.
This affection for Russia and its war against the Ukraine has led to much criticism against the AfD. So we reported about it. You reported about it. So there's much criticism. Why does it still openly support a pro-Russian line, the AfD? Can you explain that?
That is very interesting. Before the full-scale war, we also have to say the war started already 2014 with the takeover of the Crimea. There you had a lot of right-wing parties all over Europe supporting Putin and Russia. And there was a common aim. But after the full-scale invasion, some right-wing parties stand to Ukraine and support Ukraine and made a strong position against Russia. Yeah, for example, Meloni in Italy. We have also the right-wing parties in Sweden or in other northern states and even in Poland. They are clear distance and support the Ukraine. In the AfD, is that not the case? That's very interesting. AfD in the beginning started to even more support Russia. They took over the word like Eurasia, multipolar world order. Höcke, for example, he made a speech on the day of the German unification, 1 year, some months after the full-scale invasion, and saying, in this war, I'm going to elect the East.
Yeah, that is what I find so remarkable, that you have this special course of the AfD, which is so pro-Russian. How come?
And I think there is this idea to change what they hate. And they hate this Europe with liberal ideas, and they want to create a new state together with this Russia, and saying now we can implement our ideas of racist, pure Germany. I think that is maybe the idea behind it. And the most interesting thing is Krah writing in its book, if Germany would be a member of this multipolar world order, the good thing, there are no human rights anymore. And is there no new, if I can get rid about human rights, I can think about to expel people from the country, which I think they shouldn't live here. As the AfD naming a word for that, immigration. trying to do so. And I think that is the thing, the hate of the West and the liberal values.
So if
the most interesting...
Mr. Thomas.
I might add one point. I'm also totally d'accord with Mr. Bensman. Well, Putin is a despiser of democracy, a despiser of liberal way of life, and maybe this is the point which is familiar to the AfD. They also despise our way of doing in parliamentarian democracy, and this is a common point. And maybe this is a kind of explanation why the German AfD found a mental brother in Putin, and therefore even after the beginning of the war in Ukraine did not withstand but hold tight with Putin. So this is one thing I'm observing.
Mrs. Hariainova, when you look at these right-wing parties in Western Europe, and when you look at the course the AfD is following, what is your perspective on that? I mean, you've observed the activities of AfD members of parliament who went to Russia to testify the elections, the so-called elections, to testify elections in the occupied regions of Ukraine. What is your perspective on that?
Not a good one, I would say. Actually, yeah, we witnessed that in Ukraine. And as you may know, after the victory of revolution in 2014 and the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, in Ukraine, the party of Viktor Medvedchuk, a close ally of Putin, came out to the light, like strongly. And right in 2014, its so-called public youth wing tried to organize events in the centers of Eastern, Central, and southern regions to stir up the situation in support of Russia for the so-called Russian Spring, as it was conducted on the eastern parts, on Donbass, and the tries were in Kharkiv and Odessa regions as well. And over the next 5 years, with the tacit consent of the Ukrainian authorities, the party only gained influence, buying and establishing TV channels, acquiring critical infrastructure, including energy facilities, gas pipeline in Western Ukraine, and much more. And it was only when the new government began to impose significant restrictions in 2021, such as closing the channels and nationalizing the pipeline, that Russia began to gather troops around Ukraine's border. And in parallel with the West's apparent defeat in Afghanistan in 2021 and finishing the Nord Stream, Russia felt that it is critically the lose of the control under Ukraine was critical and started to act. So yeah, actually it is not tolerating, but not doing with that anything played a bad joke for Ukraine. And I believe that it will be accurate for other countries and for other similar parties that are just coming for the free world and for democracy itself.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this, for Putin, it is very helpful to have these visits of the and the observers of the so-called elections? I mean, does this play a bigger role in his propaganda, or what is the effect?
Of course, it is not secret that Russia has been building its network of influence in the West for decades, and Kremlin has used its agents of influence both to promote its interests in specific countries and international organizations and institutions, and to legitimize its own actions, in particular on the territory of Ukraine. So-called foreign observers played a special role in the shameful legitimization of the pseudo-referendums and elections on the occupied by Russia Ukrainian territories. We have seen this recently again, of course, when several AfD MPs attended Putin's election in March in Russia, even though Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine has been going on for 2 years now. So yeah, this is in regard for the previous question. This was quite shocking even for us. From 2014, there was 257 citizens of 63 countries that came to temporary occupied territories of Ukraine to legitimize the actions of Putin. What they were doing, they were taking part in this so-called elections. They were bringing media coverage to it, and they were the face of this so-called elections and referendums to be true and fair, and to be true to the international community and to international laws.
So actually they obviously played an important role in legitimizing this. Okay.
Unfortunately, and none of them have faced any consequences, any sanctions, anything actually. Yeah, and members of AfD, of course, took a big part of that.
Okay, when we look at the consequences and the sanctions, as you call it, I would like to know from Mr. Thome, what are the things democracies can do? What are the things Germany can do? We call ourselves wehrhafte Demokratie, so that means a democracy that is ready to defend itself. What can we do, and what is underway?
Yeah, resilience is one of the words of these days. Germany, as much as other countries in Europe, have to strengthen and to optimize their resilience against these intentions of weakening and destabilizing the democracies. Let me say it's a threefold way: resilience in foreign policy. We suspended our military service in 2011, and now are discussing about reintroducing military service in Germany. I think it's a debate discussion exactly in these days, in these weeks. The second, and of course, supporting the Ukraine in their military defense against Russia, proliferation of ammunition, of weapons. The second level is resilience in domestic affairs. We are discussing about making our constitutional court more resilient against the intentions of Russia, of the AfD, to one day get a judge at the Federal Court of Constitution. We are discussing about the procedures of rule of procedures of the German Bundestag, about election of a vice president, for example, election of AfD politicians into certain committees, election and de-election of a chairman of committees. So these are discussions about resilience in our important democratic committees. But of course, we spoke about that, how getting resilient against opinion influence. And the third level is economic resilience. The West won the Cold War of the 20th century due to its economic strength, not on the battlefields. of course, and this shows how important economic stability is. So this is what we have to do to work on our resilience in a threefold way: domestic affairs, foreign affairs, military affairs, and economic and also social affairs. So this is what we have to do, and you are never good enough in this, of course.
Yeah, as it's difficult for democracy, which is from the principle an open society. You cannot just isolate yourself internationally. But what I would like to know on when we come back to the AfD, in principle, it is not forbidden to argue for a settlement with Russia or for a quick peace with Moscow. Where does it start to get critical for you? So where's the red line?
Yeah, you must not be naive. So how did we come in this situation we are today? My first legislature in German Bundestag was the 17th legislature from 2009 to 2013. 4-year period when we dreamed of the peace dividend. We dreamed of a partnership with Russia. I have myself been to Russia in the 17th period twice, in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, and have been to the Ukraine once, I remember, in the 17th legislature. So this was a total different time today. Merkel, the Chancellor Merkel, had a kind of confident relation to Putin, or tried to build such a confidential relation. We imported Russian gas and made ourselves dependent from cheap Russian gas delivery. We tried to harvest the fruits of this peace period, and this came to an end. Yeah, 2014, or maybe later. I'm not sure whether really 2014 was the epoch break for this stream.
I think when I can interfere here for a short question, because I think that's a very interesting history that we are looking at. Would you say in this 2013?
Sorry, there was a short break of a few seconds. Could you kindly repeat?
Okay, yeah. I would like to know how this view on Russia in the Bundestag developed. So, and when you think back at the time 2009 to 2013, as you have been in the Bundestag already, how was the view on Russia, and was Russian influence on politics, opinion, and Russian security operation, was that on topic, or was that totally out of your perspective?
Speaking for myself, it was quite out of my perspective that time. We had other discussions. We had the Euro crisis. Remember, from 2010 on, when Greece was close to a state insolvency. We had a discussion about nuclear energy in Germany, the so-called Energiewende. So these were the discussions in these days. For me, as a member of the Committee of Domestic Affairs and Law and Legal Affairs, this was not really a point of discussion that time. I didn't be aware of this development. So in these years, for me myself, as a member of legal and domestic affairs, it was no issue at that time.
Okay, Markus Benzmann, you lifted your hand.
Yeah, that's right, because I think we have to say the Putin players in Germany are not only AfD and Wagenknecht. The German operation started long before. And I guess the beginning is the switch from the former Chancellor Schröder to Gazprom. And then the constantly not willingness to see that Putin is not a partner, but an enemy of Europe. And 2014 had Germany the possibility to make the right conclusions and say, we are not buying any more gas from you. We are not putting the Nord Stream 2 in line. Yeah. Instead, we even became more dependent, not only from gas, from oil, from coal. In our talk shows were sitting journalists which were paid by Russia, like this Cypher, yeah, and switched, oh, we always have to understand Russia, and Ukraine is somehow a corrupt failed state, and Crimea always belonged to Russia. That was the narratives which prevented Germany to make the right decisions. And I guess without that, Putin wouldn't be able to attack Ukraine. That means Germany, it was all, and there was politicians, there were artists, journalists, entrepreneurs. With all this, we have a responsibility now to make at least now a clear stand.
Well, what makes you think so, Markus Benzmann, that this started so much earlier? Do you think that was a very kind of long strategy Putin was following that had to lead to the invasion?
Yeah, I think Putin's idea was all the time to re-establish the empire. And he said it very clearly already 94 on a conference in St. Petersburg, as he was not president, but was an assistant of the mayor of St. Petersburg, Sobchak. That was his idea. And I remember a lot of people, oh, he made his speech in the Bundestag. That was a speech of a former KGB officer. That was not a nice speech. Yeah, and the only thing that a person who despised all the idea of democracy speaks German does not mean that he likes the democracy. Mm-hmm. And I think Germany somehow was blended or wanted to be blended by a Russian kitsch, yeah, and the idea they make peace with Russia and put the Ukraine under the bus for years, and I think Germany is somehow, the German policy is somehow responsible for the situation which we are seeing now. And at least now we do have to understand that Putin is playing all his cards. AfD, Wagenknecht. Then we have this funny Sonia Kretschmer. He's saying, oh, even see that Germany has to understand we have to defend democracy and our freedom also, I guess.
I think there's just one important, at least interesting point Markus Benzmann mentioned. He said that Putin speaks German does not mean he likes Germany, our way of life. And in your first statement, Markus Benzmann, you said that Russia hates, I think this were your words, hates the liberal democracy. Why is that so? Maybe it is not so much that Russia or Putin hates liberal democracy and our way of life, but he sees that our way of life, our political system is quite attractive. And this attractivity is a danger for what Putin sees as the best way to rule his empire, you're told. And to destabilize this danger, he tries to infiltrate the Western democracies with elements which destabilize these systems, make it less attractive. Maybe this is a rational explanation for what you call he hates liberal democracies. It has a reason why he hates liberal democracies, and maybe it's important to understand this.
I would like to come back, Markus Benzmann, on the Russian influence in Germany. And when we look at disinformation, an important instrument against disinformation is to uncover these campaigns and its origin. So everybody sees and knows what it comes from and what the motives are behind it. So you have been engaged in several stories about the AfD and its connections to Russia. What is the difficulty about reporting about these connections?
The thing is, first of all, you can report what they are saying, that they are visiting, that they are admiring. And then always was the question, do it because they are believing it, or doing it because they became money for that? Personally, I even would say it's more dangerous if they would say this without money, because then they believing it truly. That is maybe more dangerous. But now we have the first time we in a spot of situation where two secret service in Belgium and also in the Czech Republic, that is what we heard, have evidence that high-ranking AfD politicians are involved in getting some money. They are still denying, but it seems that the proofs are quite strong. And actually that would, if that yet be now proved also for everybody, and that's not possible to deny anymore, that would be harm the AfD, I guess, quite a lot. But the thing how it works, you know, you do not need only money. If you're invited, for example, for the election observing in Russia, you get a nice hotel, you get a nice perception, yeah, you get importance, and you also can buy people via importance, via nice receptions, via small thing, oh, you are quoted in Russian TV. And that is also a trick to attend these AfD politicians. For example, there's one, you name Stefan Keuter. Stefan Keuter from Essen has nothing to do with Russia, never. Yeah, he didn't speak Russia. But suddenly, as soon as he came in the parliament for the AfD, to the perception, he was invited for congresses, and now he is one of his interests also in the Bundestag, and that is quite interesting. I think we have to see Putin is a former KGB officer. He knows how to play.
But even if we have these affairs, if we have some proofs and so on, I would say it's still not sure that it really harms the AfD, because you had lots of affairs when you look into the history of the AfD, and you have, even if you have a proof that some money was paid, you could always try to get around it by saying, okay, this was for the cost of the hotel, or for some kind of, you know.
I found it by accident.
It's not so easy to prove it before court. And when you take the example from Prague, it doesn't look like as if you will really have the proofs in court. So you wouldn't have a jurisdiction on that in Germany. I mean, that's one of the difficulties you would have, wouldn't you?
I do not. I think that is now, I think, the biggest gate which I see, not only of Russian involvement or the Russian sympathy in the AfD or the sympathy for Russia inside the AfD, but that is really a thing. And I was quite impressed of this letter, which is now published from the two prime ministers, and they do it, in my opinion, only if the proof's quite strong. But let's see. But as what I get from inside from the AfD, they are quite nervous. They are quite nervous because this K and Bystron heading the list for the European election, and they are not able to get rid of them. And I think it's also up to the other parties like FDP, HDS, to make this point strong. Yeah, I remember during one of the first German Chancellor, Konrad Adenauer, he had his this advertising saying all ways of the socialists went to Russia. Now you can say all ways of the AfD went to Moscow and Russia. And then it's a question, if you really tell the people, yeah, where you would like to live. Would you like to live in a Europe under the dominance of the Kremlin? Or would you like to live in freedom? And I think even in the East, if you make really this question, I think even in the new Bundesländer, like Saxonia or in Turin, where is going now to vote, you can make this point. Nobody wants really to be under the dominance of Russia.
You can make this point, but still you have a great sympathy also for the AfD positions who say, okay, we need this peace with Russia and we are understanding their point, and NATO is responsible for all this and so on. So you have this part of the people too. And that leads me to Olesia Haryanova again. What would you say in Ukraine? How successful is Russian propaganda? So do you have a part or even a big part of the population who is influenced by this?
It's not quite a Russian propaganda. It's Russian influence campaigns, I guess. And they are aiming at undermining the national security of Ukraine, of course. So in 2022, we just looked through the full-scale invasion. In 2022-23, Russia saw the creation of socio-economic problems as a tool to achieve its goal. So it launched missile strikes on the energy and food, economic and transport infrastructure of the country, hoping that this would encourage society to demand from the authorities that Ukraine capitulate. And since the second half of 2023, attacks on civilian infrastructure and residential buildings have become more frequent. At the same time, powerful information campaign was conducted about the Russian Federation's readiness for negotiations, which the Kyiv regime allegedly doesn't want. And in both cases, the goal is to increase the vertical tension between society and the government to the critical level. We can see how Russia operates in Ukraine right now in 2024. It is its main focuses are two topics. Main topics, one is corruption scandals, of course, to say once again and to like multiply this message from many people in the Western countries, politicians, journalists, etc., that Ukraine is the most corrupted country in the world. Because of course we have corruption scandals, and the scandals are in the front line of people's faces in the media. So it always leads Ukrainians to think that we are like failing, not to think we are on the contrary, we are fighting and we are capable to fight corruption even in the wartime. And the other topic is the not legitimized Ukrainian government, because we would have an election in 2024 this spring, but of course we cannot hold it because of the martial law. So this is the two main topics, and of course Ukrainian society is very tired. The 2 years of war, and the crucial one, the airstrikes almost every day, and the loved ones on the front lines. Ukrainian society has been quite not as resentful to those kind of propaganda from Russia, unfortunately. But I don't believe any of us are, actually.
Okay. One more question to Mr. Thome before we then open up for questions from the audience. We had several cases of security operations of Russian agents in the Bundestag itself. So you had this hacking attacks on the Bundestag, you had this security measures because there's the Russian embassy on the other side of the street of one of the Bundestag buildings. So how does this influence your everyday work life in the Bundestag?
You must be careful with all what you do, but you must not put all your way of working, all your way of life under the fear of being observed by a foreign power or so. If you do so, well, then the other side has, so to call, one, be careful, but do your business, your daily work as you are used to do it. This is what I try to do. Of course, we have to be aware, we have to be careful, but I cannot each minute hide and be silent because there could be a spy somewhere here around. So we are careful. We follow some instructions of awareness and of security. This is what we try to do, especially in a technical way to make our IT systems, for example, resilient and safe. But besides that, we have to do our daily business.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just scanning some of the questions that are coming in and trying to figure out who they are addressing. Okay, so one is maybe Mr. Thome, you can say something about this. Assuming the AfD and its political approach emerged as a critical reaction towards the the liberal developments in the 21st century, how can and should we deal with the AfD and its voters in the future? So it's a crucial question, how to deal with it. You know?
Of course, the AfD is a party elected to the German Bundestag. The AfD therefore has certain rights to have seats in the committees and so on. I myself, I do not avoid discussions with the AfD. I try to show in discussions that their answers to the problems of the time are the wrong answers, and that in my case, liberal answers or whatever, the answers of the so-called established parties are the better answers for challenges of the present and the future. Of course, I told that we are discussing about whenever it comes to an election, that a member of the AfD wants to be elected to a certain function or position or committee of the German Bundestag, and we are free to elect or not to elect, then every member of the Bundestag is free to make his choice and not to elect, maybe, for example, the suggestion of the AfD for the vice president of the German Bundestag. So and so it comes. So this is what we are allowed to do and what we are doing. But of course, in a certain way, as a previous constitutional court judge said, you cannot prevent, you cannot protect democracy from the people. So if this party is elected, we cannot censor this election. So this we must be aware, and so we have to fight them down with our weapon, with the word, with better arguments.
But there is this discussion about outruling the AfD. So that's also one of the questions, given that what we now heard about the AfD, and obviously they are against the aims of the German constitution. What do you think about this debate that the AfD should be forbidden?
I'm a politician, and I think the battlefield is a political battlefield and not a legal battlefield. I cannot foresee, I cannot predict what the result of an legal of filing the AfD and to forbid them will be. And as long as I'm not sure, I cannot recommend to leave the political field and to change to the legal field. As soon as you change the legal field, it's not in our hands. We must be aware of that.
I would be interested in what Markus Benzmann thinks about that, how to deal with the AfD.
First of all, we have in our Verfassung, Grundgesetz, in our constitution, this passus in the case that a party which is inside our system is against the democratic values of our republic, the judge has the right to forbid it. And I think this passus is in this Verfassung because we had an experience in Germany that once it went wrong. In the Weimar Republic, the NSDAP didn't get in power because of a coup d'etat or a revolution, through elections. And I think that is a reason we have to think about, not we, that is up to the Kurds. But beside of that, I think we need a political discussion. We have to discuss about it because that, that are the consequences of a vote for the AfD. And that should be by the neighbors, in buses. That is not only because, oh, I do not like the Ampel, or I hate this new law about this heating system, that they really want a new country, another country, and Germany under the dominance of Russia. And that is a consequence of the vote. And I guess people have to understand that.
Ulysia Haranovava, you had some experience in Ukraine. I mean, of course, there are differences, and it's always difficult to compare this. But some minutes ago, we talked about Viktor Medvedchuk, and as far as I remember, he was banned because of his pro-Russian stance. What is your experience with that?
Medvedchuk actually was imprisoned for trying to escape Ukraine at the beginning of full-scale invasion, wearing a Ukrainian military uniform. But yeah, it was quite an act. Actually, what I might say might not be liked by broader audience or my co-speakers in here, because from our experience in Ukraine, Russia was allowed to be able to manipulate the democracy values and democracy itself in Ukraine for a very, very long time, and they were trying to cover it with freedom of speech and freedom of political views and etc. But meanwhile, his party, the biggest pro-Russian party in Ukraine, political party, undermined all key decisions related to reforming Ukrainian security and defense sectors, and also other critical sectors of Ukraine. So actually, after they had a pro-Kremlin media as well in their ownership, and actually after we banned on the national level in 2020-21 their network of TV broadcast channels, their ratings just dropped.
Yeah, but
from really high.
If you in the internet, you quickly find the accusation that Viktor Medvedchuk, he has no freedom of speech. So you don't have a real democracy in the Ukraine because he is not allowed to act as an opposition politician. How do you deal with these accusations? That's how it's in social media, for example. You have these examples and it's presented as a proof that it's not a real free democracy, and it's basically you could add it basically the same like in Russia, was just the other way around. How do you deal with these accusations?
It is quite simple for Ukraine, I guess. More simple than it would be for Germany, because everything that is undermining our national security has to go. This is what it is. We have an ongoing war from 2014. We have a full-scale invasion from 2022. We know how Russia acted in Ukraine. We know all the media. We know all the economic ties it has in Ukraine. We know almost all of its ownership of different sized objects in Ukraine, and with profits from it, it was financing its political parties and its media and its trolls, farms, and etc., etc. So everything that is undermining our national security, we have to ban it, because this is the matter of survival, actually. And Russia can say whatever it wants to say. This is the entire huge problem of the all Western democracies right now, because we have to react on what Russia and other autocracies are talking. Like you doesn't have like a freedom of speech or a true freedom. Okay, thank you. Do you have that? So this is the I guess this would be the biggest challenge of all Western democracies, how to learn to fight that, because in other way we will fall.
Looking at the chat, there is the question: is there anyone investigating the financial sources of the AfD? Yeah, well, we try, I would say, as a journalist, and you try as well, Markus Benzmann, don't you?
Yeah, we tried it, and we made also some interesting thing. We have to say, the AfD together with the Süddeutsche Zeitung, they also were in this research investigation, and we could prove that in this very important moment, as the AfD want to become established in all parliaments and also in the Bundestag, we got a support campaign from Switzerland organized. Millions. Yeah, that is a party which is brought in our parliaments by an outside campaign. At least this outside campaign helped them. And even now, what's now discussing, that is very difficult to prove, is always difficult to prove, even if it's getting in cash or crypto. Yeah, for example, if car taken by the FBI having 3,000 euro in cash to enter the United States. Nobody had 3,000 euro to enter the United States. Everybody knows you can pay with credit cards. Yeah, why the hell he has this money? And this is actually the small investigation, step by step, to get something out of it. But you can be sure a lot of journalists trying to follow the money.
Yeah, I can only underline that. Maximilian Krah, that maybe to add this, he said he forgot his credit card, so that's why he took all the cash with him. But coming back to the history of the AfD, we just said before, we had all these scandals and affairs and still it didn't stop them yet. Yeah, and I'm very curious if some new revelations like we now have from Prague, or maybe we don't have if you don't see the proofs, but it looks quite critical for the AfD, if that changes anything.
Actually, it's always difficult to watch in the future, but I would like to say after the full-scale invasion, the AfD had really hard times. They nearly didn't came in the parliament of North Rhine-Westphalia. They failed to enter the parliament in Schleswig-Holstein. There was, in the beginning, it didn't look good for them. And then suddenly, because maybe also of the performance of the government, they were able to make some points. There was some race. But now the race is also stopped a little bit. And let's see what's going on. But I think we, as a society, have at least to watch what's going on. And if they have proof, they have to discuss it. And if it's really so that they have to run the European election with two people who are under suspicion to get from the same person, Medvedchuk, who already created all the trouble in Ukraine, now creating the trouble here in Europe, it's not I think, not a good starter position. And then we do not have to understand there is something like this tolerance paradox. It's very difficult to give freedom people who their aims is to take the freedom away. And I think we have to discuss this too.
Which leads us back to Stefan Thome. Would you say it is enough what is underway there to defend democracy in Germany, or do you have ideas what else democracy or the parliament has to do?
This point where you do enough to defend your political system never comes. Why? I mean, defense is a never-ending challenge. Each spy you detect weakens your enemy, gives you information about the strategy of your enemy, but your enemy also gets some information about your defense strategy with each detection of a spy. So the defender learns a lot about the offensive strategy, but the offender, your enemy, also learns a lot about your defense system, and therefore he will change his ways of attacking. So each detection of a spy, each successful defense weakens your enemy, but strengthens it on another way, and then this makes your enemy always more dangerous. So the danger is never over. Defending is a never-ending competition between the aggressor and the defender. So this is the reason why you can never say you do enough.
Is your impression that till now Putin Putin and Russia always has found new ways of influence and for operation instead of the doors you closed? Like for example, Germany evicted a lot of members of the Russian embassy because they were obviously spies. So that was the aim, that to make it more difficult for Russian influence operations. But obviously they try to find new ways, as we now probably see in Grafenwöhr and the spies that they caught there.
Sure, it is exactly as you say. human intelligence is just one way to get information, but signal intelligence, cyber attacks are another way. And there were many successful detected attacks, cyber attacks, but nobody knows how many successful undetected cyber attacks there are. And human intelligence is maybe not the most modern way of getting information. Cyber attacks are much more convenient, and we know a lot of cyber attack groups in Russia: ATP 28, Ouroboros, Fancy Beer, and so on and so on. They are very on a very high technical level, and this makes it so dangerous. So this is another way. The detected spies of the state, I mentioned them in the beginning, DTS and Alexander J. Spies or persons led by Russian intelligence secret services may be planning obstruction actions on German military bases. Is another level. So it never stops. It never comes to an end, and this is the reason why we have always to recalibrate our instruments of defense.
Olesia Novava, how is the experience with that in Ukraine? So you have more years of much stronger impact from Russia, and you have a lot of experience with defending yourself. Would you also say, okay, Russia till now always has found its way of its new ways of influencing and making operations in your country?
Yeah, of course. Russia is going on the first place, I guess, in using new technologies and everything that is coming out in the world, like the artificial intelligence. Russia was the first country to use that to operate their bot farms and troll farms. So yeah, Russia is always evolving, but actually we've been laughing with colleagues at the beginning of full-scale invasion, because at the beginning, first couple of months, when everybody was out of their jobs, like just defending their countries, and Ukrainians on the internet gave so much power against Russian bots, trolls, disinformation, etc., that we were laughing that we just need to free all Ukrainians from their regular jobs, and we will beat Russia in informational space, like, for easy. But yeah, jokes aside, Russia is very good at what she's doing, and it is it comes in very different ways. Comments, publications of materials at the media, like different ones, using politicians, using journalists, etc. So we saw that from the beginning of full-scale invasion, as was mentioned before about AfD and its very open pro-Russian, surprisingly very open pro-Russian position, that most of Russian allies lay low and they stopped using their usual scripts to support, like not using word Russia, or we are against sanctions, or we are against Ukraine, etc., because it was bad for them. But we saw how the network of influence gain its goals, were getting closer to achieving the goals, like privately, secretly, in the I don't know, in the rooms of parliaments and other government institutions all around Europe, stopping the help for Ukraine, like not putting sanctions on critical parts of Russian Russian export to European countries, and etc., etc. So yeah, Russia is evolving, and yeah, of course, Ukraine needs to be too. We have quite not bad, I guess, intelligence services like SBU and HUR, and Ukraine also with this kind of the enemy. We have a great, sadly gotten, but we have a great opportunity to evolve ourselves. So yeah.
Okay. Stefan Thoma, when we are looking at the influence of Russian propaganda also on social media, what is your experience as a member of parliament? I mean, of course, you can have a pro-Russian opinion. You can be for peace without ever having read Russian propaganda or Russian influence. But opinion polls show that you have lots of criticism against the German military engagement for the Ukraine, that you have lots of fears. So when you have, for example, consultation hours, or when you are outside speaking with people, how often do you hear these opinions, and how often do you have questions about the relationship to Ukraine and the war with Russia?
Yeah. More and more. I didn't realize that 1 year ago, but I do realize it more and more in these weeks and months. My impression is that Russian influenced media channels stir up this fear of escalation of the war, of even a new world war, and my impression is that Russia and its friends and understanders build up this anti-war sentiment in Germany and Europe. There's fear of war, new fear of war in Germany, and yes, this I realize more and more.
And that's like normal people, or this is also within your party? Do you also notice it from people who have sympathies for the liberals?
What you call the normal people. It's not a discussion within the party, not even in the rural parts of my party. When I go to the party members in my constituency, so for example, less, but for normal unpolitical people who do not really analyze political combinations, but more for people reading newspaper from time to time, more this type of citizens. They're really concerned.
Okay, now I have a question from Dr. Groth, and I think you can pose it directly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Preuss. I have one question, and I would like to ask it to our panel. I don't want to be misunderstood with this question. I don't want to say the slightest thing against people in East Germany, but I have one question which must be allowed. We see that the AfD is particularly strong in East Germany. We see that a more positive image of Russia prevails here due to history. And especially here, we also see politicians from the democratic parties who express themselves in relatively pro-Russian terms, like Manuela Schwesig, where we would be at the Nord Stream 2 case. My question to you is, how do you classify that? What's the reason for that?
I start with a short answer. I think in the eastern part of Germany, there's even more what we call Russophilie. The Germans are not by nature Russophobe. They have no bad impression of Russia. They were always, if you go back to the German history, art history or so, tight links between Germany and Russia. We go back to Johann Strauss, a waltz composer. He lived in St. Petersburg for many years. just one example which comes into my mind right now. Maybe it's a little bit funny, but you understand what I mean. So there's no natural antipathy of the Germans against Russia, and this is of course more in the Eastern Germans, because some of them had maybe did their studies anywhere in Russia, had a good time there, friends in Russia, speak the language, and know that the Russian people are people as we are. So this is the first part of the answer. The second part is Eastern Germans who experienced the German reunification had extremely high expectations of the time to come. And the reality is always less impressive than the dreams are. And this happened. Many of the people who experienced a reunification had so high expectations that no chance they are disappointed of the results of what we call liberal democracy, of our way of economy and so on. And maybe these are two explanations why in Eastern Germany more people are inclinated to vote for AfD than in the Western part.
Okay, Markus Benzmann.
I also would like to add some idea. I think one of the things why the people are now waving, are afraid, and that very, very horrible change that suddenly to be for peace means to support aggression. Yeah, that is a very interesting idea, I guess, is the lack of leadership. The lack of leadership. Bundeskanzler Scholz, he is not able to stand for that he is elected to defend our democracy for aggression. And the aggression is coming from Russia. And always playing, oh, we do not want war. Nobody wants war, but the war is there. And the aim of the war is our country, our Europe, our values. And then, oh, we have to speak about peace. It's not we are not speaking about peace. It is Russia sending the tanks, sending the rockets, sending the bullets into Ukraine to destroy people with a long aim to destroy Europe. And if the leadership is waving in defense, then the people have not the confidence to say, okay, now we're in a time, we have to decide on which side we're going. Going we in the dark side of Siberia, or going we in a country of freedom and liberty? And I think this choice has to be made. And then the people will decide.
We have 4 minutes past 9, so we are just over time. But I thank you very, very much for this very interesting debate. I think we can finish now. Thanks very much. Thanks also for to the audience and the questions out of the audience. And yeah, I think we can finish the debate, and I wish everybody a splendid evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to every one of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.